Welcome to the Resilient Recruiter Podcast. This is your host, Mark Whitby. Today's guest is Jordan Rayboy. Jordan needs no introduction. He's been recruiting for over 20 years. Many of those years, he's billed over 7 figures. Last time Jordan came on the podcast was way back in February 2021, episode 43. Rather than rehash his bio for you, I would refer you back to that episode, which was one of our most popular episodes of all time. It was called How to Build a $1 million recruiting firm from your RV. I think it was popular because Jordan was very real. He showed a vulnerable side of Jordan Rayboy that maybe people hadn't really seen before. You're going to love this episode. I'm looking forward to it. Jordan, welcome. Thank you for doing this again.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me again. Good to be here.
Hey, Jordan, I'm grateful to you for a couple of reasons. One, you were kind enough to do a private Q&A session for my Inner Circle coaching group, which people still talk about, by the way. Secondly, you introduced me to Joel Slenning, who I'm now collaborating with. I don't know if you know this story. He said he was talking to you recently. So he's such a great guy. I just really clicked with him. And so he and I are now running a group called Apex, which is a coaching program for 7-figure recruiting firm owners who really want to scale and grow to 8 figures and build a business that runs without them, which he's already done himself, which is part of why I invited him to join me on that. So I owe you. I've not sent you a thank you gift, but I do owe you, man. I appreciate it.
That is so great to hear. I love hearing about the ripple effect of, like, it's kind of what we do for a living. We make introductions, and then you hear years later about how this has positively impacted people's lives. And yeah, Joel's one of the best humans I know. And I was in Bend, Oregon, a couple weeks ago for a gravel race, and I had dinner with Joel. And it's great to hear how he's just doing all kinds of amazing things in the world. So
Totally.
one of the most badass recruiters I've ever met. And yeah, he scaled multiple recruiting businesses. So it's not like he got lucky and did it once. He's got a recipe that works. And so that is a great guy for you to hitch up wagons with.
100%. So listen, last time we caught up was about, 15 months or so ago. What is new and exciting, or what's going on in the life of Jordan Rayboy since we last spoke?
Wow. Well, at that point, I don't know if it was still in the depths of the pandemic where I was worried about.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, my primary focus was on growing food and raising chickens at the time. And, I think the coast is a lot more clear now. We've added a third little Rayboy to the brood. Yeah, so Asher Rogue is about 7 months old now. Hunter is 3, Ryder is 5, going on 6. And we're back out in the RV. So as I sit here, you see little kids' toys everywhere. Also, since then, we've ripped the desk out of the RV, and there's the kids' bunk beds where my desk used to be.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been relocated from working in the RV to working in our air-conditioned car trailer, and figured out how to continue being on the road, living the dream with 3 little kids, 2 dogs. I should share the dogs, Yarrow and Rogie Mama. So still doing it. 16 years into the adventure with the whole family. So it's
amazing.
Great.
Congratulations on number 3. I've got 3 kids as well. It can be a zoo, but it's just, yeah, it's awesome. And so 3 kids, 2 dogs, traveling on the road. How does that actually work? I can't quite, I love the kind of digital nomad lifestyle you've built for yourself, but I don't, talk me through the logistics. Like, what's a typical day for you?
That's a great question. It works as long as the RV works. When the RV stops working, but when the RV works, typically we roam on the weekends, and we try to stay parked in one place during the week. And now, with all the kids stuff, it takes a long time to pack and unpack. So we try to stay 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time in a given place. Right now we're in Bentonville, Arkansas, one of the cycling hotbeds, which are the types of places I tend to visit these days. We also just recently bought a duplex here because real estate's doing really well, and we like the area. So we're in Bentonville this month. Typically I get up around 7 take the dogs for a walk. Get into the home office around 8. Get into email. I try to get on the phones by 8:30, and I just generally have a work schedule these days from 8:30 to 4:30. I'm not trying to kill myself, putting myself in the ground, working too many hours. Um, at 4:30, it's time for me to gear up and get ready to go ride my bike. I typically leave on my bike around 5. I'll ride an hour to get to a group ride that might start at 6. I would do a group ride from 6 to 8, and I'm home around 8:30. Eat dinner, go to bed, do it again. So trying to find a balance between work and life. And Jessica found a hot yoga place she likes going to. Some days during the week when she wants to do that, I stop working at 2:30. I watch the kids from 2:30 to 4:30 so she can go to hot yoga. I'll usually do my planning during that time. Um, just plan my calls for the next day, and then go on my bike ride and try to be the best husband and father I could be. Try to be healthy, and my work supports the rest of my life, versus living to work. I'm working to live, and I'm happier like that. I'm in a much happier, more positive mental place than the last time we talked, for sure.
That's beautiful, man. I'm glad. I'm delighted to hear that, and it's interesting because I think as we progress on this journey through life, we go through sort of different phases in our life. And I just wonder, looking back over yours, like there's been phases where you've been very motivated in the pursuit of financial success and all the toys and the, that kind of thing. And it sounds like you're in a different place now. If you look back, what are those kind of milestones for you where you can see that things shifted and you were focused on different priorities?
It's interesting hearing you say that, because I was just listening to I think it was a Rich Roll podcast, where he was talking with a guy. Was it Chip Kelly or Chip something or other? And he was talking about becoming a modern elder, and how the first portion of your life is really focused on accumulation, and usually that's up to like age 45 or 47. And for me, it happened earlier than that, probably because I started recruiting right after my sophomore year of college at age 20, and had a lot of success really early. I think I was billing 900 by the time I was 23, and went out on my own at 26, and had a lot of really good years. And I was really focused on accumulation, and I was focused on significance, and I was focused on that ego, pursuit of being at the top of the rankings, and keeping score, and trying to impress people, and caring about things that right now at 42 with 3 kids, I'm focused on, what can I do to make my wife happy? What can I do to make my kids' dreams come true? And, you know, um, I feel like, going back to the podcast, they talk about how up to a certain age, typically it's like 45, 47, you're focused on accumulation. And after that, it's like attunement, or like kind of paring back and getting rid of things or giving more things away, and, kind of prioritizing what's really most important. And that's just kind of what I've worked through these past couple years, is figuring out what really fills up my cup. And I used to have a virtual team. I've had up to 11 people on the team that we including Jessica and myself, that we led virtually. And right now I'm back to being solo, and I'm super happy. And yeah, I don't have people to outsource and delegate things to, which would be nice at times, but I'm happy making my own schedule, and um, doing what makes most sense for us at any given time. So
Wow, I love that, Rich. Sorry, I love you. I said Rich because you said Rich Roll podcast. I love that, Jordan. Um, I'm surprised that you listen to Rich Roll because that's one of my favorites as well. Because he promotes a vegan lifestyle and he's like on a sobriety. Have you read his autobiography?
I have not, but I am also on a sobriety kick. Not from the alcohol though. I think this month makes 14 months since I last touched marijuana, which
Oh, wow.
I'm very proud of, and has made a big positive impact on my life. And he also happens to be an ultra endurance athlete,
He is.
and he's on the running track. I'm more of a cycling junkie myself, so
Yeah.
I love his podcast. I listen to it for hours on end while I'm riding my bike.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm interested to hear you say that. I am a fan of Rich Roll, and I am also plant based. And I've taken up running a couple of years ago. I ran my first half marathon just a few weeks ago, which I never would have thought I could have done because I was athletic when I was in high school and university, but since having kids and working, having your own business, all of that just slipped by the wayside, and I was 100% sedentary, and just realized I had to make a change. So,
there you go.
um,
Way
yeah,
way to vote with your feet. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean it's way too easy to make things like work a priority, and you don't make your own health a priority. And most people don't realize, oftentimes, until it's too late, if you don't take care of yourself and make your health number one, then there's not as much of you to show up at work. There's not as much of you to show up to take care of your family and be the best partner and parent and spouse that you could be. And so that's why I kind of made this conscious, intentional decision to make my health a top priority. And when I have more energy, and frankly, I'm happier. I'm a better husband and father, and I'm better at being helping clients and candidates in our business as well.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I love the quote: "Every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become," and you know that extends not just to work, but definitely to every dimension. Um,
Is that is
but
that fr-
Jordan,
is that from
go ahead.
Atomic Habits?
Yes, I think it is
That
actually.
sounds like
I,
something from James Clear with the that's
it
that's my
exactly,
my
yeah.
my favorite book. That book is magic.
Love that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a book club for our clients, and that's one of the all-time favorite things that we've studied together. Um, so Jordan, what you're describing sounds amazing, like focusing, prioritizing, reprioritizing your life, focusing on what is gonna make you happy, finding more balance. But you're still doing really well. Which is not easy. Like, how have you managed to find that balance, and what does that entail?
Well, one thing about being intentional with your time is schedule first things first. If my health is
Hmm.
important, when is my health going on the schedule? You know, I don't run for 20 minutes. I go ride for 3 hours. On the weekend, I don't ride for 3 hours. I might ride for 5 or 6 hours. If that means I need to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning to do, the types of rides that I want to do. Because last weekend I was in Emporia, Kansas for this Unbound 200 gravel race, and it was a 13 and a half hour race. And you don't get fit for
Wow.
that doing a 20-minute ride. You get fit for that doing 5, 6, 8 hour training rides, so that on race day, when it comes to 13 hours, you could dig deep and you're going to be prepared to do that. But I schedule my health. I schedule, I work with Jessica on this. I'm like, your health needs to be a priority. You love doing hot yoga. Let me know your hot yoga schedule. I'm putting that on my schedule. I schedule both of our health before I schedule phone calls with clients or candidates. They get the rest of the time. So I make first things first. I know that sleep is a very important component of my health. I wear a Whoop strap now. I recommend Whoop. What can be measured can be improved. You don't realize how much or how little you're actually sleeping until you start tracking it. And I might be in bed for 9 hours, but Whoop tells me I'm only actually sleeping for 6.5 or 7.5 or whatever it might be. And it tells you how much of your sleep is actually REM sleep or deep sleep or light sleep or time that you're actually awake. So I put sleep on my schedule. I want to be in bed for 9 hours, so I actually get 8 hours of sleep because it's important for my health. So I schedule my health first. I schedule my time with my family first. And maybe I'm enough on autopilot now after 22 years at work then when it's time to ground and pound, I've done sessions on power planning, so I'm a pretty efficient planner. And if you've got a good plan, you can eliminate distractions and execute on your plan during work hours. But I think that's probably doing it. My new process is scheduling the non-work things first, and work kind of fills in the gaps. Versus a lot of people take the opposite approach, and therefore work becomes their life. And right now, work is definitely not my life. Work is how I finance the dream and how I finance the adventure. And I'm
Fantastic.
in a happier place because of that.
All right. That's amazing. So you talked about eliminating distractions. Part of that is your power planning process. But what I find a lot of people, and myself included, Jordan, so I'm keen to hear your wisdom on this. I make great plans, but then it's that focused intensity and that you need to execute on your plan when there's so many things pulling your attention. So how do you eliminate those distractions and stay on plan?
Yeah, well, you gotta that's a good question. Obviously you gotta have open and closed hours. Just like I have open and closed hours for work, I have open and closed hours for personal. When I'm on my bike, if someone calls me or texts me, like I just don't answer. That's
Yeah.
my zen time that I'm doing that. When I'm at work, I tell Jessica, don't come in the trailer. I'm closed for personal. I'm open for business, and
Mhm.
so that's one thing. Um, Having a good plan allows you to be the author of your own story, let's say, because you're going to make the calls and write the emails that uh, you want to proactively make versus being reactive to people calling you or emails coming into you. If there's a number that calls me that I don't recognize, that number just goes to voicemail. If it's important, they'll leave me a message. If it's spam, they won't. They'll just call back 25 more times and it'll keep going to voicemail. And that's a great way to eliminate distractions, as well as can't help candidates or people calling trying to sell you something or whatever it is. Checking keep your email closed or check your email at scheduled intervals is another great strategy. If you have your email open, especially if you have an email ding that dings you every time you get a message, you're constantly switch tasking back and forth between trying to execute on your plan versus reacting to whatever's coming at you. So, just trying to do being intentional about always trying to be proactive instead of reacting to what's coming at you.
Absolutely. I mean, just even the one tip of switching off your email when you're not doing an block is critical, but so many people find that hard. Actually, Jordan, focus is my theme for 2022. And I ran a session about how to avoid distractions and stay focused for my group. But it's kind of like you teach what you most need to learn. So always looking for new
Boom.
input and ideas on this. A couple of books that I read in help myself and my clients, which I'm wondering if you've come across. One is called "Indistractable" by Eyal. Have you seen that one?
I've not
Eyal, I
heard of
think his
that, but
last name is.
that sounds great. I need some of
Yeah.
that.
Well, what was interesting about that one is his career was working with like social media platforms and game companies to make their products more sticky so that they would pull people's attention. And so he's then written the opposite book on how to avoid getting sucked into spending time on what other people or other companies want you to spend time on and be the master of your own attention. So that one's pretty interesting. Um, yeah,
Well, yeah, and on
it's a
on
top.
that note,
Yeah.
getting
Mhm.
better at saying no to things and getting better at saying no to people. That's why if a number calls my phone that I don't recognize, it's just my rule. It goes to voicemail. A lot of people, especially because we're in a phone business, they just automatically pick up every phone call.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner, you get calls from people trying to sell you stuff all day long, especially if you're a recruitment business owner. Now you get calls from these RPO companies trying to, hire virtual assistants for you or whatever. Like I just get calls from people all day long that I know are just trying to take my time away from things that I want to spend my time on. Um, so
But,
yeah.
it's often the distractions are not other people, they're self you're distracting yourself, or, like, that's what I find, and sometimes it's not that the things that are pulling your attention are a waste of time. That's the problem is there's like 100 different things I could do today that are in some way related to, my goals and kind of major projects and priorities, right? And sometimes it's like you just get distracted by other stuff that is also good stuff for you to be working on. It's just not what you should be doing right this moment. So, how do you kind of prioritize those things like and be laser focused?
So great question. So in this power planning session that uh, I've done many times, I talk about this book. Multitasking is worse than a lie, and or no, it's called The Myth of Multitasking, and the fact
Yeah.
that the concept of multitasking was actually a concept created for computers that could actually do two different tasks at once, and we as humans are
Right.
not computers. We're switch tasking from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and every time you switch, there is a time cost to refocus, find your place, and start executing again. And these time costs add up. It's like every time you make a phone call, check an email, get a cup of coffee, make a phone call, check an email, go to the bathroom, get more water, make another phone call, check an email, respond to an email, check your voicemail. It's like every one of these times you switch tasks, these costs add up. And it's literally hundreds of times throughout the day. What if it's 1 minute at a time? What if it's 10 seconds at a time, but it's times 200 times a day? It's like all of a sudden you're talking about hours a day, and you wonder why you're stuck on 1.5 or 2 hours of phone time instead of getting 4 hours of phone time. If you're super focused on executing a plan, you can work a 6 or 8 hour day and easily get 4 hours of phone time. And that's kind of where I'm at these days. Is I just try to be hyper efficient and focused when it's time to pound a list. You pound a list and you eliminate these distractions. But you asked about getting pulled in different directions. Yeah, if you want to be an industry expert, you need to read articles about what's going on in your industry. But should you be doing that in the middle of your call plan at 10:30 in the morning, or do it during planning time? Yeah, you need to schedule your calls so you know who you're going to call. So you could, how are you going to pound a list if you don't build a list? Do that all at once during planning time. You need to have a script so you know exactly what you're going to say to people. Yeah, write your script during planning time. Practice your script during planning time. You write a mass email. You got mass email responses. People are responding all day long. Should you stop after every phone call every time you get a mass email response? No, just move them all into one folder and go through them all in a very focused manner. Next, 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 next. It's like if you're pounding through a list of 50 calls, it's like next call, next call, next call, next call. Within 5 seconds of hanging up one phone call, you're on to the next phone call. You'd be surprised that you could leave 10 voicemails in 10 minutes. You could make 50 phone calls in an hour. I mean, that's if you get nothing but voicemails. But people wonder why they can't make more than 10 or 15 calls, because after every call, trying to figure out who am I going to call next? What am I going to say to this person? You spend 2 or 3 minutes getting ready for a phone call that just inevitably ends up in a voicemail anyways. So having a scheduled planning time that you could do all of these activities, all your administration, all of your call scheduling, all of your script writing, all of your industry research, all of your blogging or tweeting or whatever you're doing on social media, you know, all of those things all at once in a very focused manner. So it's like next, 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 having a checklist of what are those activities you need to do during planning time, doing them during planning time, because rule number one is plan during planning time. If you're planning during phone time, Jessica's shaking her butt because she's like, this is the moneymaker right here. Like, if you plan during planning time and you make phone calls during phone time, you make a shit ton of money in the recruiting business. Excuse my language. That's the cardinal sin is when you see recruiters planning during phone time, that's literally taking money right out of your pocket. So having a dedicated time on your schedule that you're going to do all of these activities in a very focused manner, um, And if it means, hey, you're scheduling an hour block in your schedule to do this group of activities, like Mark doing outreach to people for your podcast, hey, you're going to do that in a focused manner. So you hit 10 or 20 of those in a row versus doing those throughout your day and every time having to switch tasks and refine your place. And that's just less efficient. So sorry for my rant.
Absolutely, I love it. No, that's all right. So if you're well, just on switch tasking, by the way, you reminded me when I found an experiment that was done by a teacher, and what he did was he got his students, he divided them into two groups, and he got them to one group had to count like 1 to 26, like, okay, count to 26, go, and it takes like 10, 11 seconds. And A to Z to say the alphabet, again, it takes like 8 or 9 seconds to say the whole alphabet really fast. But then no, it wasn't two groups. It was the same people, and he got them to time themselves. And then what he got them to do is go 1A, 2B, 3C,
I
4D.
in the myth of multitasking, they do that exact
Yeah.
exercise, and it takes about two or three
Okay.
times as long. And you make all kinds of mistakes. You're misspelling stuff. You feel like an idiot, and
Yeah.
you come you everyone. And by the way, I've had people do that exact exercise live and time themselves, and people are laughing and they're missing words. You spell out the myth of multitasking, and you spell out the numbers 1 through 27, and you do it in a focused manner, and then you do it in a switch task manner, and it becomes very apparent to people that multitasking is worse. The phrase is multitasking is worse than a lie in the exercise. So I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying.
It actually well, on the graph that I saw, it took about 5 times longer to do the
Wow.
exercise when you're split tasking that way. Um, so Jordan, if you're aiming to finish up at 4:30 in the afternoon so you can get on to your cycling and your family time and your everything else, so does that mean your power planning is at what, 3:30 before you finish up, or when does that happen?
Yeah, somewhere thereabouts. It might be towards the end of the day. It might be at night when I get home from my ride. And I travel in an RV, and I'm in different time zones. So if I'm on the West Coast, that might be from 6:30 a.m. until 2:30 in the afternoon. If I'm on the East Coast, I might be doing group rides in the morning at 6 a.m. and I start my day at 9:30, and I work 9:30 to 5:30 or 9:30 to 6. So my time zones shift and my cycling schedule shifts, whether I'm riding in the morning before work or at the end of the day after work. Um, but yeah, I make sure that planning time is on the schedule one way or the other. It might be my planning time might shift accordingly depending on my time zone as well.
Amazing, awesome. So you mentioned that your priorities have changed and you're more focused on um, things that allow you to create balance and find happiness. And you've given two great examples. One is, cycling that you scheduled. The other is sleep. The third is scheduling stuff together with Jessica. Um, what else are you prioritizing? What else gets Jordan Rayboy's top priority time and attention these days?
Um, That's a good question. Well, again, I mean, with health, the health component, as being plant based, what you put in your body affects the outcome of how much energy you have, and so prioritizing putting the right things in your body, prioritizing minimizing the poisons that you put in your body, also prioritizing the right things that you put into your mind. You got to stand guard at the gates of your mind. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was way too focused on bad news. And now it's like I'm kind of oblivious to most of what's going on in the world. It's funny. People are like, oh, the market, the stock market's dropped this. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. That's good to know, but I'm not worried about it. I'm 42. I have a longer time horizon. The market's going to go up and down. Maybe that's a bad example, but um, you know, Ukraine and the January 6th committee and all these other things that are just noise that don't really impact me in my regular walks of life, I just tune all that out. I just basically I don't even read news except sports news, and occasionally um, bad news from the world starts invading my sports news, and I have to tune that out also. So I
It's okay. I definitely want to talk about this with you, the news and the because there's a whole topic around that in terms of uncertainty in the market right now. Um, but before we do that, just coming back to your prioritizing your health and energy, why did you decide to give up marijuana?
um, that's a great question because I'm an addict. Because I
Okay.
couldn't control it. And I have a property in Oregon, and I lease one of our fields to marijuana growers that have a recreational marijuana farm. So for me, it's just a real estate transaction. I'm not in the quote marijuana business, but I have a giant marijuana operation at the bottom of my property. So it was literally at my fingertips, and I was quote the king of the hill, so I could walk in and acquire it with ease. Let's just say, but um, let's see. It makes me an idiot. It brings my IQ down by about 80%. It makes me a bad husband and father. My wife Jessica, God bless her, she's my best friend, and she thrives on connection. And I literally couldn't carry on a sentence. I would turn into literally a blubbering idiot. Like my dogs had more intelligence than I did when I would smoke. Um, I had no motivation. I had certainly no motivation to ride my bike. I'm also asthmatic, and it would make me not able to breathe. And breathing's important. You learn that when all of a sudden you can't breathe. Breathing becomes the most important thing in your life. Things that subconsciously you shouldn't even have to think about. What else? Besides it being bad for my health, bad for my relationship with my wife, made me a horrible example for my kids. It made me not work as hard in my business. Um, I had no growth, and I would just lower my standards. And I didn't like the peer group that I would surround myself with. And you feel like you're the smartest guy in the room. That means you're in the wrong room. um, I was just surrounding myself with people playing life at a lower level, and I had no aspirations for growth. I would totally just kill my growth mindset. I could go on and on. I have a mantra that I created of I will not smoke today, and like literally I went through. It must have been 50 different reasons why marijuana is poisonous to my life, and now being 14 months clean on the other side of that, um, my life is just so much better without it in every way. And I'm actually part of a peer accountability group. It's a sobriety accountability group, and interestingly enough, everyone else in the group is in the group to not drink. And one guy, my buddy Mark Phillips, hasn't drank now in I think coming up on 2.5 years. Kathy Stewart, who you should have on your podcast if you haven't already, she's amazing. Kathy, who saw me present at the NAPS conference last year, and I had talked about being 6 months clean at that point. She came up to me at the end of my presentation. She's like, "Jordan, I've just decided after hearing you, I need to stop drinking. I've had a glass of wine or two or four every night for the last 25 years. This needs to stop. It's not okay." I'm like, "I want to help you join our group." And we have this bi weekly conference call, and we just hold each other accountable. And now, my buddy, a couple of other friends from Pinnacle, when I shared this at the recent Pinnacle meeting in April, they're like, "Jordan, I need to quit smoking cigarettes. Jordan, I need to quit drinking." I'm like, "I want to help you. Come join our group." And all of a sudden, we've got 5 people in our little bi-weekly peer accountability group, and everyone's got their vice that they're committed to stopping. And everyone, we just kind of give each other support and allow each other to share your little successes and these little wins. And more importantly, a shared commitment becomes a strong commitment. And you could commit to yourself you're not going to smoke, but if you commit to a bunch of other people that you care about and respect, that you're not going to smoke, that shared commitment becomes a stronger commitment.
It's interesting. I didn't think this conversation was gonna take this direction, Jordan, to be honest, but I haven't drunk I've had maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine or champagne in about 20 years,
Wow,
I would say.
that's awesome.
But I usually don't share that. You've made it okay to do that because I feel like most people can't relate to that, and it's going to break rapport because they're going to be like, who the hell is this guy? Like, why does he? I don't know. I think that's an alien idea for many just normal folks. They're not alcoholics, but they do like a drink, and I'm not making that wrong for anyone else. I just know for me, um, it drains my energy, and I feel like I'm less healthy, and I feel like, yeah, I just don't feel good when I drink.
Yeah,
And if you drink, too many, then the next day is a write off. So it hampers your productivity. I just feel better. I feel mentally clearer and better without drinking. So although I was never addicted, I don't think, I just cut it out
yeah. Well, and
altogether.
and and kudos to you, Mark. And I think you simply voiced what most people know, which is that alcohol is poison. It literally is a poison inside your body. It's why if you drink too much of it, you feel poisoned. You regurgitate it out because your body's rejecting it. You feel crappy the next day because you've poisoned your body. If you wear a whoop strap, it gives you a recovery score. It tells you how well you sleep. If you have one beer, the next day your whoop strap represents that you didn't sleep that well because your body is processing this poison out of your system. And
Is that right? Wow.
yeah, I mean, the whoop doesn't lie. If your resting heart rate is higher, if your heart rate variability is lower, it literally is a score for your autonomic nervous system. It tells you how well your internal systems are functioning. And if you have a beer or two, your recovery score isn't as high as if you do not. And I have a beer or two every now and then, but it almost always makes me feel tired. Um, it doesn't have this positive euphoric effect that it used to. And then the next day I'm like, why did I do that? And this is from someone that, like, literally, I love the taste of beer and I love craft beers. And but the bottom line is that alcohol is poison. And if you disagree, you're simply lying to yourself. Even people that love drinking know that it's poison. Is pick your poison. It's
Right, right,
putting a
right.
poison inside your body. And that's kind of what I discovered with marijuana. And this is coming from someone that smoked marijuana pretty much nonstop throughout the day for 20 plus years, from when I was in college at 19 or 20 until 14 months ago.
Wow. I Jordan, I think everyone knows it's poison. The reason people do it though is it's sociable. And that's the problem is a lot of social situations and like friends and family revolves around food and alcohol. And then, and I found like it did make it harder to make friends at work when I was like
Yep.
in my first recruiting job because they all go to the pub on Thursday or Friday night. And you're kind of the odd man out. Yeah, that's the that's the
I dig
reason.
it.
And
And
yeah,
I hear that
but
loud and clear. Fortunately, I'm in an RV with my wife and kids, so I don't have that personal
yeah,
challenge. But what I have fallen in love with is LaCroix seltzer waters. Um, and honestly, if you're drinking a seltzer with lime, someone doesn't know that you're drinking that versus a seltzer with vodka. If
right.
you're drinking
Okay.
a drink that has a lime in it with a straw at the pub, I don't think anyone knows it. But what you do notice if you're the one drinking seltzer is how much less intelligent everyone tends to become, and how much more intelligent you become by comparison. And all of a sudden, everyone else is laughing at your jokes because you're that much smarter than them in that moment. You kind of notice that interesting dynamic. Um,
There is. Right now, people are starting to panic. Recruiters are starting to panic because of big tech firms, especially announcing hiring freezes and layoffs. And they're letting go hundreds of people at one time. And combined with interest rates going up, stock market going down, um, cost of living, inflation, going through the roof. And so people are scared of, that we're going into a slowdown, which could turn into the next recession.
Sure.
What is your mindset towards that?
Um, So a couple things. I feel like the old guy now. I've been through this many recessions. I actually have now, having started in 2000.
Yeah.
I can remember 9/11 and the recession that actually started before 9/11. I can remember 08, 09. Um, and so I can actually say I've been through several of these recessions. Top talent is always hard to find. So if you place A players, you place the not in play players, and you've developed a tight niche and become the expert in your niche. The last lion, the strongest lion gets the last gazelle. And I remember every one of these recessions in the past, if it becomes that, if and when it does, um, I feel like 75% of the recruiters that got into recruiting because it was such an easy business with low barrier entry, they exit the business and they go do mortgages or they go do this or that. I'm trying to think back in '02, like everyone got out of recruiting and went into like different things. But a lot of your competition will go away. So if you're great at what you do, it becomes an opportunity to get a bigger piece of the overall pie. So that's one thing. Two, I feel like
Hey,
hiring.
Jordan,
I don't
I
know
wanted
if
to
it's
circle
like a
back to the
lagging
news.
indicator or maybe hiring IT salespeople, which is what I specialize in. It like lags 18 months from when you hear
Mhm.
about hiring slowdown. Maybe it's because I happen to be in the technology space that technology companies keep hiring for 18 months after that. So, hey, I need to be making hay while haymaking is good for the next 18 months because there might be a slowdown. That's something else. Something that's always a good idea is save your money, live within your
Yeah,
means.
really. Yes.
We having bought this RV new in 2008, we have it paid off. We are pretty much liquid. I think the only thing we owe money on are properties that we own that are rental properties and are cash flowing for us. So we live a very high quality of life. I believe we're living our dream, but we certainly live within our means. We're certainly not keeping up with the Joneses because the Joneses change whenever we change RV parks. But save your money, keep your expenses low, um, buy things in cash, don't finance things. There is no greater feeling than owning my house in Oregon outright, and my taxes are 3 grand a year. My insurance is a couple grand a year. I know that if shit really hits the fan, as long as I have 5 grand in the bank, I can pay my taxes and insurance for the year, and I own my house. I don't have a mortgage. So that's a great idea. Um, but also keep your expenses as low as possible. I'm a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's
Yeah.
got a game called Cash Flow. It's like a board game, but it's a real eye opener. That the objective is the game is to accumulate assets such that your cash flow coming off your assets exceeds your expenses, and then you are essentially financially free. The goal of the board game is to become financially free. And when you play it enough, you realize it is so much easier to become financially free as the janitor than it is as the lawyer. One has expensive like 3,000 a month, one has expensive 10,000 a month, um, and it's a lot easier to accumulate assets and throw off enough cash flow to become financially free when your expenses are lower. So, anyways,
I got you. So, the two main points were, um, live within your means, save, keep some cash reserves for a rainy day, and, you kind of did a nice reframe on the whole idea of a recession being that, number 1, uh, top talent is always tough to find, and companies are still gonna need, A players, and secondly, it thins out the competition.
yeah,
So,
it, it's an opportunity
yeah.
to get a bigger piece of the market share, and it's an opportunity for specialists to really shine. So if you're a generalist, maybe start
Mhm,
carving into a niche now.
mhm.
The tighter you are in your niche, if you dominate your market, then you're going to be just fine.
100%. And I think, like, what I've seen, because Well, you and I started around the same time in recruiting. I think you were 90.
2000,
When did you
May
start?
May of
Oh, you were
2000.
2000. Okay, so I started 97, and so the dot com bubble. I was placing. I think I placed 4 or 5 people with this e-commerce company, and then they didn't get their second round of funding, and then they didn't pay us, which was kind of a bummer. But live and learn. And then I started my business in September 2001, and which was
Good
interesting.
timing.
Interesting times. And then 2008, 2009. So yeah, I feel like it's not fun for sure, and it's not easy. You're not necessarily going to have your best ever year when shit hits the fan, but it's everything is temporary. This cycle of you know great times, like right now, we're still, I would say, in a super crazy hot market, and that can't last forever. It's not sustainable. Whether it's in 3 months time or 2023 or sometime after that, that's gonna slow down, and it's not fun when that happens, but it's just temporary. If you can get through that tougher trading period and you know keep building your market dominance within your niche, then you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
only temporary.
and so now would be the time to train up, uh, sharpen your saw, sharpen your skills. People listening to this podcast, people that are investing in themselves, keep learning, keep growing. Because you're going to need it when times get tough, and you know the marketplace is it's kind of like a battlefield. So you want to get strong before you need to go on to the battlefield. So
Well, a battlefield's an interesting. I the analogy I don't even so much worry about competition, Jordan, because what I want to do is build a community and of people who you like, a community within your ecosystem that you serve,
yeah,
and to be prominent within that community and be giving and adding value and really stepping into a self-appointed leadership role within that community
yeah,
where you're very visible and you're communicating a lot, not just promotional stuff, but you're like, that's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, of course, is to be visible within the recruiting space and also just to be helping people as much as possible. And that definitely comes back to me. And you know, I feel like every recruiter has a similar opportunity within their space. If you're a specialist within a niche, if you are serving people and adding value and trying to help people and building that community, then you're the one that people are going to turn to in tougher times, and that your competitors are going to fall by the wayside.
absolutely. Well, and also another thing about recessions, when it is tougher times, you have more access to senior decision makers because they want your help personally, as opposed to you call them 100 times to market to them and help them build their team, they never return your call. If you have a senior level opportunity, they return your call in 5 minutes. Or if they're on shaky ground where they're at, they'll at least take your call and talk to you about their background, so you keep them in mind for senior
Right.
if they know that you specialize in those senior level types of opportunities. So it's a great opportunity to build those relations with senior decision makers, so that when you come out of it, you've kind of moved up to a higher level in the pecking order.
Absolutely. 100%. The other thing the mistake I hear a lot of recruiters making during like hiring booms like we're having right now is, I don't need to do client development. I don't need new clients. I'm too busy. I just need candidates. And I'm like, that is going to come back and bite you, my friend. You always need to be developing client relationships, even if you've got tons of orders. And worst case scenario, you can top grade your clients and be more selective about who you partner with. But you know, the recruiters who don't have those client relationships that they're nurturing over time, when the market turns, then you know you're going to be out of luck.
This is
Is I don't.
this
What do you
is
think?
this is absolutely true. Yeah. Um, Whoever has the most clients typically wins. Um, you want to be getting at a minimum getting those agreements in place now, so you can leverage them if and when the times get tough. But yeah,
Yeah,
you don't realize that the shift comes until all of a sudden, whoa! Um, Now these companies won't put new fee agreements in place. Now they're like, oh, you get into that situation of approved. Well, I don't even want to talk about approved vendor list, but um, yeah,
yeah,
you want to be capitalizing on the opportunity to get relations with as many clients now as possible.
yeah.
So at
Absolutely,
the end of the day, clients pay our fee. So I think those are
exactly,
relationships you always want to prioritize.
exactly. Jordan, this has been awesome. We're out of time for today, but we've covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I'm sure people are going to really enjoy hearing, your wise and seasoned, let's say, take and
Yeah,
perspective on things.
thank you. Happy to do it, Mark, and hope people get some value out of it. And always great chatting with you.
You too. All right. Enjoy your cycle this evening and stay healthy.
Thanks, my man. You too.